Rob Welling of SYS Yacht Sales. Incidentally, all the bio notes are in your program, so I'm not going to read to you what their full bio notes were. Just as an introduction,
It doesn't matter.
U.S. Coast Guard Master 200-ton license, brings knowledge to SYS and to clients across the country in hopes of helping them discover, achieve their own boating dreams. And Rob is going to moderate our panel on the tech segment. This should be fun. Advances in boat design. And Rob Welling, take it.
Great. I don't know how long we're going to be able to run. I think lunch is at 12:15, so we're going to keep it rather a little shorter than anticipated. I'm going to blame Gary for all his achievements and Paul as well. So just to get started, to introduce the panelists, we have Sven Kirchhoff with Torqeedo, Jens Bering with Volvo Penta, as well as Ken Clinton, the president of Intrepid Powerboats. And as Bob mentioned, the conversation today is about advances in design. We have kind of, I guess for lack of a better term, eco-friendly bent to this, which primarily is going to focus on the role of electric and how that has sort of started to infiltrate its way into certain aspects of our industry, right? Whether it's propulsion, power supply, and things like that. So I'd like to start just to get them going ASAP. If we can start in the end with Ken down here and just kind of work our way this way. If you can give just a little bit of an introduction, a little bit about yourself, and a little bit about what your company is doing in that light, in that particular space.
Sure. I'm Ken Clinton with Intrepid Powerboats. I've been with Intrepid for going on 32 years now. And right now, the innovation that we're working on is, all our innovations are based on customer input. And one of the biggest things that I hear is generating power on board. And one of the issues that we have is, couples go out with their families for the weekend and the generator stops working, there's issues with the generator, and it ruins their trip, it ruins their vacation. So, we've heard a lot of feedback in that direction. So, though we're not at a point where we have electrical propulsion to push boats of my size, there's no reason why we're not at a point where we can at least power the boat within, especially when you start looking at the products that are being built by companies like Mercury Marine, where they have, engines that are putting out 150 amps. That's been the biggest thing, is figuring out a way to do a supply of lithium-ion batteries that will supply all the 110 power with an inverter or a converter and be able to power it. And it does a bunch of different things. One, it's reliable. Two, it's silent. There's no noise. There's no generation of emissions. There's no exhaust. There's no water pickup. There's less to go wrong. And it's really a technology that the missing link has always been, how do you repower those batteries? How do you get them back up to par? The original questions you always get is, how long will it run and how fast can you recharge it? No different than the auto industry. And what we've found is, finally, now that outboard power and technology with companies like Mercury, they're able to give us that missing link and give us the power that we need. So we have just built a 41 Valor with generator delete, and we have a lithium-ion bank that we're able to supply the entire boat with the power that it needs. We can run off the hook with no engine power, recharging the lithium-ion bank for up to 14 hours, running the air conditioning and the other appliances. And it's those kind of innovations going forward that, I think it's going to make not only a better situation for the planet and the environment, but it makes for a better boating experience. It's more reliable, and we don't have to worry about customers' trips, being tainted by a failure of a mechanical device. And so far, so good with that.
Right.
Very good, thank you. Okay, we're on, yeah.
Yep.
Jens Bering with Volvo Penta. First of all, thanks for being here, and thanks for the invite. 25 years in a couple of weeks with Volvo Penta. Most of that time in the marine industry, but in different, more or less engineering capacities and so on. Sort of to echo what Ken was talking about, there's a tremendous amount of engineering going on, within the marine space, within the propulsion space, and of course within renewable energy. We have this little thing called EPA that we have to abide by, and they do a good job of driving us. So we are right now spending a tremendous amount of effort, certainly there isn't a fuel source probably that we are not investigating and working with, because again, we have signed up for this Paris Accord, science-based targets to reduce the emissions footprint. And so, how do we get there? And the way we get there is investigating a slew of different technologies enabled to get down the carbon footprint. So we have test vessels running right now in the North Sea and so on, and we can talk more about that as we get into it. But it's a little bit of a race with technology right now, and it changes extremely fast. So how do we learn and how do we explore now with what we have done for more than 100 years, which is to put diesel fuel into an engine. And today we're extremely good at that. But of course there are some negatives with that as well. So yeah, a lot of technology is put in place right now into the billions by the Volvo Group right now, just in R&D. And then we have some interesting projects going on in Europe together with Daimler. I know Sven knows who Daimler is. It's basically Mercedes-Benz, and a couple of other groups in Europe where we are now, we have teamed up and we are now putting in an electrical grid in Europe for the trucking industry. We are using electric trucks here in the States already within the Volvo Group. We have more than 4,000 buses running also that is fully electric. But we need to scale it, and so anyway, there's a lot of money going into just infrastructure.
Sven?
Yeah, my name is Sven Kirchhoff, and I work for Torqeedo. We are a manufacturer for electric propulsion system that includes electric engines, but also the battery technology. We started in 2006 in Germany. We're still headquartered, and then I joined them a couple years after and opened up the facility here in the U.S. about 2008, 2009. We are still, I would not say a startup company, but still growing very fast. I mean, we are still growing by 25% every year, which also shows there's a clear demand for this technology. And due to the fact that lithium-ion technology is now commercially available, we are able to equip those bigger vessels now with electric systems. Before, you were relying on lead-acid batteries and are limited pretty much by its weight and size. And we're able to maybe have small 10 horsepower engines on your boat, and now we are able to go, or my company, we are able to go up to 160 horsepower. So working also, you mentioned Daimler, we work with BMW, for example, on the battery side, use their batteries from the i3 electric car. I think we are going in the right direction, and we are definitely growing very fast.
Nice. So one of the things when I was asked to do this, and I saw who was going to be on the panel, I was impressed. And one of the things that impressed me or made an impact was the variety of spaces that the benefits of electric power is affecting. We've got outboard motors, much larger, inboard, operating in sort of a hybrid space right now. Who knows? We'll talk about maybe where that's going down the road. Of course, everything's it's technology, right? It continues, it grows, it moves forward. And then even to Ken with, on the building side, that as a builder. So it's interesting to see the variety of ways that this technology's taken hold and continues to take hold and improve. One of the things I think as brokers, I'd like to have you guys talk about a little bit is some of the benefits beyond, obviously, the eco benefit, right, is like you said, the carbon footprint, all of that is sort of the obvious. But something we can talk to our buyers about, our customers, looking forward in the future. Some of this is happening now, obviously. Torqeedo, you've got your pilot program out there. I know you're talking about doing something here in Lauderdale, and some of it's looking down the line. But I don't know about you all, but I have had questions, and I assume probably most of you have as well, from clients saying, hey, what about these? There are some builders out there that are exploring the hybrid option here and there, and people ask about that. And so if you could talk a little bit more about some of the benefits in each of your particular spaces of electric power, that'd be great.
Yeah, I mean, besides the eco-friendly part, which is a big benefit, and
Sure.
Not only for somebody who is involved in that area or cares for the nature, and it's also a marketing strategy, of course. Other benefits are they are just quiet. You can enjoy the waters a lot more. They are less maintenance. They have a lot less maintenance, so you're saving in cost there. You have now a lot of more ways to integrate your propulsion system in your whole complete vessel, because it's electric, and you can combine other things into your system. But you still have to be aware that there are limitations. And the question is always, where does the energy come from for electric motors? And that is battery technology, and we are making big steps. As I mentioned before, from lead acid to lithium-ion batteries now, we are able to power big vessels. But also there are limitations. You can't just go all day long. You have to adjust your way of operating your vessel. You have to be more aware of things like efficiencies or range. But I think we're going definitely the right direction. There's a lot more options now. The more demand there is, there's more money for research, and they can improve that technology and maybe come up with new ways. That's what Torqeedo does also. We're not just limiting ourselves on lithium-ion. That's our main energy source. But there's other technologies like fuel cells, which we integrate in our system. We work with other companies to do that. But I think the future is still, when it comes to energy source, the lithium-ion technology. And yeah.
That was going to be one of my questions. Is that, as of right now, just looking forward as far as possible anyway, lithium-ion seems like that's still the road everybody's traveling down. We don't see some alternative out there that's just not harnessed quite as well yet, or whatever. But that's.
Same, the lithium-ion technology is not harnessed all the way either.
It's not, safety-wise and everything else.
Yeah.
There's issues, right?
Well, also, I mean, we in the last 2 years, we were able to increase our capacity by 30%, keeping it the same size of battery, same price, which means in the end, the price comes down. And that will be in the future that we are able to increase the demand and lower the price for it.
More of the same, right? Just trying to refine all of that, right? Whether it's efficiency, cost, et cetera, which is another thing we talked about in terms of, is it a viable option yet in the recreational side like us versus the commercial folks? Depending on the scale and size of what you want to do, obviously with what you're doing, I think it's certainly targeted to a degree. You have recreational opportunities there, whereas some of the hybrid stuff, it's happening a bit. Jens, can you talk a little bit about some of the benefits on your side and sort of the scope and scale, like maybe the pilot program a little bit, what you've learned from that?
Sure. So, as we start to explore, this electrification process, and I think probably most people in here, they are probably familiar with that. We're a propulsion provider. That means that it's not just an engine, right? It's the complete driveline, and so that really makes Volvo Penta a total solutions provider. And as we now get into this, we want to continue to be a total propulsion or solutions provider, because it's going to take a lot to engineer this, not like we have typically in the past. You can buy an engine from us and you can go buy an engine or a transmission from ZF, and then propellers and struts and all this stuff. Those days are over, so it needs to be our philosophy is that it needs to be a totally engineered product. I think it also is what Torqeedo is doing. And in that constellation, and when we're dealing with an energy storage system now, it's about the efficiency. You need to capture as much or be as efficient as you can for the energy that you have on board. The same as you do today with a fuel tank. How efficient can I be with the existing propulsion system for the amount of fuel that I have? So just think energy, battery instead of fuel, right? And so we will continue to explore and develop how efficient can we be, with that energy that we have on board. And so we grapple with, we have the shoreline and you have ocean, and then we have what's on lakes. On lakes, probably there's a different kind of development, which is fully electric, and we buy into that, and we develop for that, because if you run out of energy, you can toss an anchor out, perhaps, or drift in someone's backyard. That event may not be as detrimental that if you have just electric on the coastline, right? Then if you run out of energy, you got to really pay attention. So we are going two routes right now with full electric and also hybrid, both parallel and serial. And so in that constellation right now, we do have, as what you asked, we have two vessels running right now in the North Sea, and they're crew transfer vessels. They're 115-footers. They service the wind farm turbines in the North Sea, and they are a serial hybrid, and they are quad IPS. And again, IPS dual prop, that propulsion efficiency is what we need to capture as much of the energy that we have on board, because we have a battery bank on board these vessels. And we also have 5 generators. And so the way that system is set up is that 4 IPS units, only 2 of those IPS units are hooked up to a diesel engine. The other 2 IPS units are hooked up to 2 800 horsepower electric motors. We call it the Power Plenty. It's in the North Sea. But the thing is that when you're out at the North Sea, and a lot of these CTVs, they're loitering. Once they're out there, they don't consume a lot of energy. So that means that we can run on 1 small generator, and he can produce energy into the 2 electric motors that runs 2 of the IPS units. So as the operator calls for power, more generators will come online, and last, the diesel engines will come online. So that is what we're exploring right now. We have a smaller vessel running also up in northern Norway, which is also a hybrid, but it's a stern drive hybrid, and it's in a small place called Lofoten. It's between Greenland and then northern Norway, a sightseeing vessel, and there they run a lot on battery, because it is a sightseeing place where they watch polar bears and stuff like that. So, and then when they are transporting to and from, then the diesel engine takes on, when they're in transport mode. When they're in sightseeing mode, it's full electric. So we are developing a lot of different kind of technologies, and also, like Sven says, right, what's the right circumstance, and that's what we're going to have to figure out. There are different kind of circumstances that's going to call for different kind of technology, and so that's where we spend a lot of.
And that's interesting too, because one of the things, and I know we spoke about this a little bit too, is the software behind it, or just the program and the technology that wraps around it. It's not just the fact that, hey, this thing's running off of a battery, right? So great, we're eco-friendly, we're doing this, and it's quiet, and all these benefits, but because we are dealing with hybrid technology in a lot of cases, in terms of like our recreational boats, we know some manufacturers doing that, on up to, now it's proven, hey, this is functional in a 100+ foot boat out in the North Sea, and likely, much bigger as well. We talked, some about the large commercial applications, but, it's not a black and white issue. It's hey, here we are running massive diesels, and just, you can't pour the fuel out fast enough, and here it is full electric. There's a scale in between. In a lot of the technology, not just the fact that you have batteries in a diesel and you can charge it, but there's technology of how to manipulate that need, right, and gain efficiency there too. And Ken, one of the things you had talked about in terms of what you were doing and the benefits, I guess, if we could, with the power supply, and the generator delete idea that you had, and all that. You kind of talked about that a fair amount already. You mentioned a lot of those benefits, and they're great. You did just run, you had mentioned to me a trip. I don't know if you want to talk about that at all, but kind of give some ideas and sort of some of the parameters and the things that you had success with on that trip. Sure. The timing, it was, when we spoke, I thought it was very impressive what you're able to pull off. Sure. With the new system. That makes it very, very viable, which is great.
You originally also spoke about how it affects brokers. Here we are with a room full of brokers, and I think that there's a lot of people that are in here that understand that you guys are the front line. You know, a lot of people don't realize that. I'm a manufacturer, but I also have a sales office. So I understand the phone calls that when a family goes on a trip and the generator stops working and we didn't have air conditioning, we didn't have this, and it ruined my vacation. And who gets the phone call first? You guys. You guys get that phone call because you have developed a relationship with the customer, which is what it's all about. You know, I think we all get that. And as a manufacturer, you know, I think it's our job to figure out ways for you guys not to get those phone calls. You know, I think it's with the technology that's out there, it's possible. You know, the hardest thing to do is to have the guts to push forward, you know, and I think, you know, the 41 Valor that we just did is a prime example of a boat that, you know, I was able to run all the systems while the engines, and this is a twin Mercury V12 600 setup, 150 amp alternator output, and the battery bank system never dropped below 100%, ever, with everything running. But let's also be realists and understand that you're going to go on the hook, you're going to turn your engines off, you don't want to keep them running all the time, but you could go 14, 15 hours, you know, with four 24-volt master volt batteries. That kind of technology is going to make boating more fun, because that's what this is about. People are going out on boats to have a good time, and it's our jobs to ensure that we keep that going, because it's those bad experiences that ruin boating. You know, when you get that phone call about my family waited all year to go on this vacation and it was ruined because we didn't have air conditioning and the appliances didn't work, and they don't want to hear that I didn't make the generator. My logo's on the side of the boat. And they don't want to hear that from you either because you sold them the boat. You know, so with that being said, I think it's important for all of us to work together to cure what ails us. And I have the luxury of being able to build boats directly for people, and I get their feedback, you know, good and bad. And that's really what drives our innovation. You know, we were the first ones to do gyros in an outboard boat because I had a customer said that his wife would get seasick. Happy wife, happy life, you know. I had customers tell me that, you know, we were the first ones to do a bow thruster in a outboard boat, and it was because I had a guy tell me that I got wind and current behind my house, and my wife and kids won't help me ever, and I'm always stuck by myself. And you know, you overcome those things, and you push that innovation, and the industry follows. Just like when we did the first dive door in 1994, who would cut a hole in the side of a boat? And now I don't think you can buy a boat without one. It's pushing that innovation, making sure that we give the customers what they want, and figuring out ways to do that so you guys don't get those phone calls.
Yeah, and I think all three of you are, you know, in your own respective spaces doing exactly that. You're pushing the envelope, you're moving the ball forward, and that's awesome. There are, I mean, so many other things to talk about. I know we're getting right up into, I think we're right into like lunch hour right now, so I apologize. I know we're running a little bit long. You sure? Couple more? Okay. I mean, is everybody good for a few? Yeah, I was gonna head to there. Just real quick. On the other side, we talked about a lot of the benefits. Maybe real quick, we can just kind of touch on, you know, probably the most common questions that we would encounter as well, because this is new technology, and we're trying to learn some of the basic, you know, benefits, but also some of the limitations. Obviously, we have, you know, a battery bank, right? It's only going to be good for so long with so much usage, you know, so many amps drawing, this and that. But from even beyond that, I mean, you know, for instance, safety, you know, lithium ion, you know, there's still a little bit of a, you know, hesitation there with some people, right? Justified, on the way out the door, does it matter anymore? Is it not an issue? Where does that stand? I can just run right down the line, or, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously justified. Safety is a concern. You also have to think about the fact that whenever something new comes up and something happens, this is, you know, what's in the media, and people are also going to scream about it. Still, for example, BMW with the R3 car, and that's the battery we use, they didn't have any accident where a fire was involved. So it is a very safe product, safe technology. But there also are bad players. You have to make sure you're going to use the right player, the right manufacturers of those batteries. And then you have to know if something happens, how do you act about it? And the benefit is with lithium fires, best is water, lots of water. So in the end, you're surrounded by water. So if there
You
is
end
an
up
accident,
surrounded by water if you're not careful. That's one of the things about, a car versus our environment, right? Is a car, you can pull over, hop out. In this case, you're running, say you're offshore, say you're on a pilot vessel, you get a fire, you may get more water than you want.
yeah, I mean, it's one is the battery itself, the cells themselves. There's differences in manufacturers. There's good cells, there's bad cells, and then it's about the whole battery pack, which has a battery management system involved to make sure that you treat the battery the right way. You can't run it out of its safe operation limits. Then the next step is, again, also how do you install the new vessel? You have to install in the way that if something happens, you can still operate the vessel safely without anybody getting hurt.
Yeah.
For example, you can locate that battery in a battery compartment. You can flood it if that happens, so the other batteries are still able to work with your system.
Similar to an auto system, what we have now in engine rooms and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
But also standards have to be made more.
Yeah.
And we've been working with the U.S. Coast Guard a lot because also there's a lack of standards out there.
Yeah, that's what we talked about too, is like the regulation is I won't say non-existent, but pretty close, right? I mean, it's all so new at this point that where do you go with it? So.
And 2 years ago, U.S. Coast Guard finally came out with a standard so that when you commercially use that vessel, you have to follow those standards. And, so I think, again, we are going in the right direction, but you definitely have to also look out for the right players in it.
Yeah, for sure.
I'll jump in. Obviously, we are not there today with a marine production complete system, and really part of that, I think, is what touches on what you said is, and I think maybe to answer part of the first question also is that serviceability, and the safety around it. We are obviously a large organization, and I think that also benefits us because we gotta get spun up with service and parts, and so before all those matters are sorted out, the safety and all these things around electrification and alternative fuels, is that we need service. That there's a lot of training and there's a tremendous amount of education to be done. And one of these forums, I think, like we're doing right now, is excellent because it is about education, and where is this technology heading, and so on. But the serviceability, and then I think for all of us to have these right experts, because when we jump out on these vessels right now with 800 volts or 600 volts plus, we can certainly say, it changes the game a little bit. And for us, with our service organization, there's a lot of stuff to be done before we're done with all of that stuff. So, because safety is number one, but that's why we are running extreme applications right now in extreme locations, to see the behavior on some of this stuff and then the safety behind it. But still, there's a lot to be learned, and for all of us here, right? So, just personally, we're not far away, but again, it's to get our whole organization up, from R&D, of course, but also to get everyone trained. It's super, super important.
Nice.
Yeah.
And I guess I'll finish, and maybe we'll just do a quick Q&A so we can all get to lunch, but I'll finish with Ken real quick. One of the things that we haven't touched on is cost, and where that lands and how that may or may not affect the space that we generally operate in. So from your perspective and your experience now going forward with the generator versus battery power, where is that landing? And then we can maybe briefly touch on cost for other applications out here. But
Yeah, I think right now that's the biggest con, is the price. But I think it's just like anything else. When there's a new technology and the volume is low, cost is high. I don't want to date myself, but I don't know how many of you guys remember when plasma TV, a 37-inch plasma TV was $10,000. Remember those days? It's the same thing. You're looking at batteries now. I'm using 4 of these 6,000 24-volt batteries from Mastervolt. They're like $6,000 a piece. So right away you go, well, you could buy 2 generators for that. But I'll also say that most of my boats are around $1 million on average. And if you have that kind of money, is it worth it to you to know that you have a system on board that is silent, that you don't have to carry 2 types of fuel, you don't have all the penetrations in the hull, and then add that it's also good for the environment? I think those types of customers are willing to spend that extra money at that level. And the more that we embrace it, the more that we use it, the better pricing we'll get, because there'll be volume behind it. Just as the same way that $10,000 plasma TV that you can now go buy a great TV for $800. It's that's what we need to do going forward.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think, that's a scalable question in terms of, whether it's outboards or moving up into the larger inboard stuff where, maybe it is the larger you get, maybe it's a little more cost prohibitive for some of the larger boats, but the people that really want to do it, are getting close to being able to. So no, that's great. And I guess at this point, any questions? Paul's got the mic
from the
over
audience.
here.
We've got 3 smart guys and 1 handsome one up there. So we got a lot of opportunity to ask good questions. Oh, hang on a second, Shane.
Hey, 2 questions actually. One for you, Ken. On that 14-hour run, using those 155 volts, how long would it take to recharge that system?
Sure, it would take about 3.5, 4 hours. Wow. So, and it depends though. If it's just battery power, engine regeneration, it takes a little bit longer than that. And we're looking at 150 amps per motor.
Right.
But I'll also tell you that there's some technology coming out that I can't go into detail on, but it's going to give you even the charge rates will be almost 5 kW per motor in the future. It's that kind of stuff that's coming up, which we're excited about.
Interesting. Other ones for the Torqeedo. We recently delivered Ocean Renegade, and it had the Torqeedo system in it. Very, very thorough. A lot of details in it. What is the kind of the max size? Is that 54 catamaran kind of the biggest you guys can do right now with your 160?
Sorry, you said the max power range?
Max power, like realistically, like that boat had about a 4-hour run based on what was on there. You're not going fast, you're going 8 knots. But what is your biggest vessel you guys have done year to date?
So you asked about the runtime we usually expect with our system?
Yeah, we sold a 54 catamaran.
Oh, 54 catamaran,
Yep.
Okay.
The Ocean
So
Renegade.
in that size, you're talking about our high voltage segment, and we're talking about our 80 horsepower, 160 horsepower, or you can do a twin, then you have 320 horsepower engines in there. The runtime, it always depends on how fast you're going and how many batteries you put in your vessel, and that's depending on the weight and the space you have. If you go full speed, waste any energy you have, then you're done within an hour, or maybe an hour and a half. If you have more batteries, you can maybe waste 3 hours of your day, but that's the whole point. You have to be more conscious about efficiency and how much energy you use right now, and it's what Torqeedo tries to do to show the customer if you're being efficient right now. How many people just push the throttle all the way down and they don't realize if they pull it back, they can save 25% of energy and didn't even lose any speed. So I think that's the mindset what has to change, where people are more conscious about how they're operating the system. But otherwise you can be on the water all day. That's full electric. You can incorporate generators, of course, and extend the range with that. And then you have ways to operate the whole day. We have a customer who runs an Aquila 44 in the Bahamas, and he is able to go about 6.5 knots with his boat without using any electric power, purely by his generator, which is a 25 kilowatt generator.
Yeah, I think the other point to that is the education that's going to have to come with the new technology.
Yes.
Similar to the system that I have in place. You teach a customer that if it's behind his house plugged into shore power, you spool up your gyro before you leave.
Right.
And it's little things like that extend your systems.
Yeah, there's still some load management and things that you can do to take advantage or more advantage of the system, right?
Correct.
Yeah, and even still, hammered down on any boat is, we all know it's not efficient anyway. So, just a little more awareness can bring a lot of benefit, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah, the education's a big part.
Hey guys, this is a question that goes to the extension of power. So is there any connectivity for present or the future with solar power recharge capability?
Well, I know on my side, I've done tender systems where we use solar to be able to support lighting while under tow. I can't speak to anything that generates enough power to make it make sense at this particular time. Whether we're able to get there in the future, I don't know, and maybe these gentlemen know more about that than I do, but I have yet to discover anything that there's enough benefit to make it worthwhile.
We do offer integration of solar panels into our system, charge your batteries, but just Ken said, you're still with solar energy, people have to be aware that you're limited also in how much power they can generate. A 80 horsepower electric motor draws about 50 kilowatts. To generate 50 kilowatts, you need more solar panels than you can probably fit on this roof here. So it's really for maybe extending your range, maybe powering more your small appliances on your vessel so you don't have to use your main propulsion energy source to power those items.
But when you're talking about energy on a boat, it's you probably need to stay to Florida because when you're consuming, let's just say equal to maybe 800 horsepower, it takes the amount of solar you need is you can't calculate it.
Well, I
Bob,
guess
Sven, Jens, Ken, thank you very much. An excellent panel. Bob's going to take us to lunch.
thanks, guys. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, great job there. Fantastic. So I did a Mariners Club address last year, just before Fort Lauderdale Boat Show. We had an innovation panel that I moderated. And Ted McCumber from Fedship told us that Fedship has on the books a windowless bridge, okay, down below, so that they can take the helm or the bridge, which is a very desirable area, and convert it to creature comfort space. So it's like a submarine would operate. No windows. How about that on your bridge? Just mirrors and screens. So, all right. So there's something I have to tell you about. I heard one collective stomach growl here a second ago. So I'm going to get you. Don't worry. We've given you food for thought. Now we're going to give you food for your physical. On your badges, you'll find a little ticket back here. Paul has, this is one of Paul's schemes. And does anybody have ticket 109? Nobody? Well, too bad. That was the round trip to Bora Bora for 2 for a month. They'll have to hold it over to the next one, Paul. One-way trip. So the idea here is that when you come back, you're reassigned to a new table, okay? So I don't know what you're going to do with your personal belongings and all that. Let Paul figure that one out. But when you come back, go to that table, except for that one seat right there where I'm sitting. So you come back, the idea is to get network and meet some new people and all those good things, all right? So we're going to lunch, but a lunch option is the board members of EBA will lead calisthenics poolside, okay? And yoga and meditation towels are provided. That's an option if you don't care for lunch. For the rest of you, you're going to go out that door. You're going to hang a left. It's a buffet. There's plenty of room. There's plenty of tables in the other room, the dining area. Anybody who was an award winner must cede to the other peons and get way in the back of the line. So only people that are award winners, okay? Otherwise, we'll see you in about an hour. Have a great lunch.